For thousands of years, it was this incredible story. You know the one, a tale of epic battles, legendary heroes, and this city with walls that were supposedly impenetrable, completely lost to time. A war fought over a stolen queen, and won by maybe the most audacious trick in all of history. But was it just a story? Or was it real? Well, today, we're going to dig for the truth.
Welcome to our Rewind the Ages YouTube channel. Look, we all think we know the story, right? A 10-year siege, a stolen queen, and of course that giant wooden horse that completely changed the course of history. But here's the thing that's always bugged people. Where's the line between the myth and the reality? Was the Trojan War just a great story cooked up by the poet Homer? Or was it a real, brutal conflict fought by real people? Well, let's dive in and find out. We're heading to a place called the Hill of Hisarlik to literally peel back the layers of history.
So the legend, the one that Homer gave us in his epic poem, the Iliad, it all starts with a forbidden love. You've got Paris, the Prince of Troy, and he makes a very bold move. He steals Helen, the Queen of Sparta, who just so happens to be the most beautiful woman in the world. Yeah, you can imagine her husband, King Agamemnon, was not happy about that. He was furious. So furious, he launched this massive fleet, 1,000 ships, they say, to cross the Aegean and get her back. And for 10 long years, the Greeks just hammered away at the massive walls of Troy. But it was a complete and brutal stalemate.
So, after a decade of getting nowhere, the Greeks realized brute force just wasn't going to cut it. They had to get clever. So they turned to trickery. They pretended to give up, to sail away in defeat, but they left behind this enormous wooden horse, a supposed offering to the gods. The Trojans, thinking they'd finally won, celebrated and pulled this massive gift right inside their city gates. Big mistake. Because of course, that night, soldiers hidden inside creep out, open the gates for the rest of the army, and Troy, well, it burned to the ground. It's an absolutely incredible story, right? But for centuries, that's all it was, just a story. Historians pretty much dismissed the whole thing as pure fiction.
But then, everything changed. In the late 19th century, the whole search for Troy moved from the pages of ancient poetry to the actual soil of the earth. Scholars started to zero in on one specific spot in modern-day Turkey, a hill called Hisarlik. They became convinced that if Troy was real, if it ever existed at all, it had to be buried somewhere under that very mount.
And this brings us to the man who was absolutely determined to find it. His name was Heinrich Schliemann. He was this German businessman who had been obsessed with Homer's epic poems since he was a little kid. He literally showed up at Hisarlik with a copy of the Iliad in one hand and a shovel in the other, just completely, utterly convinced that the legends were true. He started digging. And you know what? He was right. But there was a huge twist. He found a lot more than he bargained for.
See, he thought he was just looking for one lost city. So the big question is, how many cities did he actually find?
9. I'm not kidding. Not one city, but 9 of them. Each one built, then destroyed, then rebuilt right on top of the last one over thousands and thousands of years.
Just look at this. This diagram really shows you how unbelievably complex the site is. It's like a giant layer cake of history. Now, Schliemann, in his excitement, well, he got a little carried away. He basically blasted a huge trench right through the middle of it, digging way too deep and destroying some of the very layers he was looking for. Oof. It actually took later, much more careful archaeologists to come in, clean up the mess, and correct the timeline. And they're the ones who identified the real candidates for Homer's Troy, the layers we now call Troy 6 and Troy 7.
Okay, so if we want to find the real war, we have to look at the layers that line up with the right time period, the Late Bronze Age. And that leaves us with 2 prime suspects. Suspect number 1, Troy 6. This was a rich, powerful city. It had these high, sloping walls that honestly match Homer's description perfectly. Then you have suspect number 2, Troy 7a. Not nearly as grand, but a place that tells a much, much darker story.
All right, let's start with the case against Troy 6. I mean, it was a grand city for sure. It really fit those epic descriptions. But when you look at the forensics of how it was destroyed, it tells a totally different story. The walls, they have these shifts and cracks that are absolutely consistent with a massive earthquake. There's no layer of fire, no tons of weapons scattered everywhere. Its famous topless towers didn't fall to an army, they fell to Mother Nature.
And that brings us to Troy 7a, our prime suspect. This layer dates to around 1180 BC. And folks, this is a true scene of the crime. Let's look at the evidence. Exhibit A, we've got bronze arrowheads, still stuck in the walls. Exhibit B,
skeletons, unburied, just left in the streets. And Exhibit C, a thick layer of fire damage everywhere you look. The verdict here is crystal clear. This was no earthquake. This was violent, man-made destruction. This was war.
Okay, so the war was real. We've established that. But what about the most famous part of the entire story, the Trojan Horse? I mean, come on. Most historians agree that a giant hollow wooden horse filled with soldiers is probably a metaphor. It's likely not literal history. So the real puzzle is, how do we translate this incredibly powerful myth back into something that makes sense as a military reality?
Well, let's take a look at the leading theories. Theory number 1 is the machine. The idea here is that the horse was just a poetic way of describing a massive siege engine, maybe a battering ram. You know, these things were often covered in damp animal hides to stop them from being set on fire, which could have given it a kind of animal-like look. Then there's theory number 2, the god. So in Greek mythology, Poseidon is the god of earthquakes, and his symbol is the horse. It's possible the earthquake that wrecked the earlier city, Troy 6, was seen as the god Poseidon, Poseidon's horse, smashing down the defenses for the Greeks.
And that leads us to theory number 3, which suggests the horse was really a symbol for a trap. Think about it. In ancient warfare, pretending to surrender or leaving behind a fake peace offering to get your enemy to lower their guard, that was a classic move. It's totally possible that over centuries of telling and retelling the story, this tactical Trojan horse, which was really just a metaphor for a clever deception, slowly turned into the literal, giant wooden statue we all picture today.
So in the end, whether the walls of Troy fell to a wooden horse, an earthquake, or a battering ram, one thing is absolutely certain. The city of Troy is not a myth. It's real. It stands there today in Anatolia as a physical witness to thousands of years of human ambition, brutal warfare, and just incredible resilience. And if you go there, you can actually walk on the same stones where heroes like Hector and Achilles might have once stood.
And that brings us to our final question. And this one's for you. What do you believe? Was the Trojan horse a real machine? Was it a metaphor for a natural disaster? Or was it a symbol of pure tactical genius? We really want to know, so drop your theory in the comments below. And hey, if you enjoyed digging into this mystery with us, make sure you subscribe to Rewind the Ages. We have so many more ancient mysteries to uncover together.